Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Dyer and welcome to Colorado Inside Out on this Friday, July the 12th. And welcome to our Insider panel. Patty Calhoun, founder and editor of Westward, Eric Sondermann, columnist with the Colorado Politics and the Denver and Colorado Springs Gazettes, Laura Aldrete, a city building consultant and former planning director for the city and county of Denver, and also Sean Walsh, public affairs professional with Sean Walsh Consulting. It's great to have you back at the table. It's been a while. Good to have you, Sean. This coming Wednesday is going to mark the first full year in office for Denver Mayor Mike Johnston and some members of the City Council. Earlier this week, Mayor Johnston and council members asked Denver voters to approve a sales tax increase to pay for more affordable housing. And that came on the heels of the City Council agreeing to put another sales tax increase before voters to support Denver Health. If both were to pass here in Denver, the Mile High City would have the same sales tax bracket of some of the high country towns. Patty, it's a lot that they're asking.
It's a lot that they're asking right now when people in Denver are concerned about their trash pickup, the potholes, the roads that are completely closed, that they don't have their compost bins yet. There are a lot of concerns that Denver residents have, and 2 tax hikes, that's a pretty big load for them to suddenly shoulder. It was interesting, I was looking at Mike Johnston's campaign promises. He didn't announce until after the statewide ballot he'd pushed through, 123, which is a big affordable housing program, passed in November 2022. That's when right after that, he announced for mayor. And interestingly, in his campaign promise, he says, I've got a plan for affordable housing and how we're going to fix it. Used some of the money from 123. It never mentioned a tax hike. So I think this is going to be a tough burden to carry.
Okay, Eric.
I think that some of the details are still being worked out. I probably have more questions than answers about it, particularly how it interplays with 123. And, you know, there's a difference between affordable housing and homelessness for sure. But Denver voters have been very generous in past years in funding various homelessness tax increases. So this is one more ask on top of that. Part of being an executive, whether it was Michael Hancock, John Hickenlooper, others who've held that office, is prioritizing and knowing how much you can confront the voters with at any point in time and saying what's going this year and what's going next year and what's going the year after. And I don't see that triage happening right now.
Okay, the Colorado Polling Institute came out with a survey this week of Denver voters, and more than a third of voters said our taxes are too high already. Laura, and also in that survey, said 3/4 say housing affordability is not an area that the mayor has made progress in the last year.
I did a little bit of math around what does $100 million per year look like for affordable housing. If you assume affordable housing unit costs $400,000, which is I think is standard practice, you're looking at 250 units a year of affordable housing that could be delivered. If you're looking at a low-income tax credit deal, which is mostly supported by the federal government, that is $23,000 that could go towards a unit, towards that $400,000, right? So you're creating a subsidy. Or if you're talking about vouchers, which is one of the ideas that he had in his announcement, it's $189 per month per year that could go. Now, we're not going to fulfill 44,000 units, which is what his goal is on those numbers. So it adds to the stack of expanding affordable housing, which is inclusionary housing that we have on the books. On Prop 123, in 2016, there was an affordable housing fund that was created, $100 million a year. I think the question for the Denver voters is how much? How many times can we keep going back to the pocketbook and adding to this, or is there a different way we need to think?
Listen, every mayor finds a way to distinguish himself from his predecessors, and Johnston is no exception. He doesn't play small ball. I mean, he campaigned on, he doesn't want just Denver to be merely successful. He wants Denver to be wildly and notoriously successful. My concern about the affordable housing tax, it is an urgent issue today, but in 5 years and 6 years, are we going to have this enormous amount of money? It's $100 million in year one. It could be $130 million in year 5. Is affordable housing still going to be the issue that it is today? And we're going to have this dedicated revenue stream to a thing that doesn't address the issue that's going to be relevant in 2030. You know, and then the whole issue of Denver Health, you know, they're in direct competition for sales tax dollars. I mean, I'm sure that the mayor's announcement on, on an affordable housing sales tax probably made the blood pressure up a bit on the Denver Health Board. They're going to be all smiles and put their best case out there, but they are in direct competition. But it's going to be up to who cuts through the political noise and presents a more urgent case. That's the more likelihood of success.
And that same poll that said pretty much they liked at least half the people said they liked what Johnston is doing. There were about 32% that said they didn't, and that was more than last year at this time, but he hadn't done much by then. But affordable housing did not come out as a top priority on that poll. It was still homelessness. So I think people are going to think we put enough money to that. This isn't the one to buy.
All right, thanks, panel. Good insight. This week, Colorado Senator Michael Bennet said that he believes former President Trump will beat President Biden by a landslide in November and take with him the Senate and the House. This as the Republican National Convention starts on Monday, Eric.
So much here, Kyle. First of all, hats off to Michael Bennet for speaking an obvious truth. There have been too few Democrats. There have been 8 or 9 Congress people from around the country who have done this. But Michael Bennet is one of the people of more senior stature who has come out and said what had to be said in terms of the emperor, and I use that word advisedly. The Democratic Party has been complicit in this. There is no shame in aging. There is no shame in Joe Biden's obvious increasing frailty. The shame is in those who enable it, who try to hide the ball, who don't acknowledge reality. And way too many Democrats have been complicit in that. Contrast Michael Bennet with John Hickenlooper, who really won't take any stand or say anything of substance. Contrast him with Diana DeGette, who just says, Joe's our nominee. And if I look at Hickenlooper and DeGette, maybe one common denominator is, neither of them has exactly demonstrated the ability to walk away when the time is right or the time is up. Michael Bennet is correct. It is hard to envision how Joe Biden comes back from this. It is now time, it is past time to walk across that bridge to a new generation, to pass the torch, and let's hope that he finds his way there pretty soon.
A convention is not a coronation of the delegate, but it's rather should serve as the public square for the debate and the discourse on the merits of the various candidates, of the policy stances, and it's an incredibly important part of government process. But when you relinquish it to a coronation, right, of a presumed candidate, then you have generations who are learning how to participate in government lose interest. We are losing millennials, we're losing Gen Z, who have no idea how to relate to either one of the candidates. I do think also this is a moment of referendum for large percentages of both the senators and the House of Representatives, because they are all similar. There's a good percentage that are of similar age, and they all need to be asking this question about how do I continue my worth and my value, which is really needed in our country, but perhaps in a different way than they currently are showing up, that is not efficacious for the future of our country.
Yeah, I think our political parties are reflective of the gerontology, the gerontocracy we're seeing in the Senate and in the presidency. The political parties have been around since the mid 1800s. So there's no one on the scene now older than the either political party. They have become sclerotic. There hasn't been a contested convention since the 60s, I think, for the Democrats, and the 70s for the Republicans. The Democrats are going to have a difficult time. I think the action won't be in Grant Park like it was in '68. I'm predicting that the action is going to be on the floor of the convention. These are credentialed delegates that will be there. If God forbid the Middle East is still on fire and we haven't resolved the presidency, there's going to be a lot of action on the floor that they can't predict. So Laura's right, and Eric, it shouldn't be a coronation, but that's what it's become. It's become more television than an exercise in politics. You've got to really credit Michael Bennet for coming ahead. I mean, history shows, and what was it, in Julius Caesar, it wasn't Brutus and Casca that became leaders. It was Antony, who was nowhere near the assassination. It's not And I think Michael Bennet understands this. This isn't a stepping stone to some kind of a political victory for him, right? Standing alone like that reflects that he understands that history is going to treat him a lot more kindly than it does Joe Biden.
And I don't think Bennet was thinking about history when he did that. I saw him on CNN, he said, look, we talked about it in the caucus. No one's talking publicly about what we talked about, but obviously someone had leaked what he'd said. And he goes, I'm going to go out and say it publicly now. So good for Michael Bennet for holding himself accountable for what he'd said. Ironically, when he says Biden would be buried in a landslide, he in some ways pushed the boulder. We're seeing lots more action now. George Clooney, if that doesn't clinch it. But we have to remember that it's not a coronation, but the presidency is not a consolation prize either. Just because you're a nice guy does not mean you should be running this country for another 4 years. So I think the Democrats, that landslide's going to continue, and it will bury Biden.
The proposed tax increases are not the only financial asks of voters this coming November. Residents of Denver's Ballpark neighborhood will vote on a tax to fund a general improvement district. And there's also talk about expanding the authority that generates investments in and around Union Station. Since you're into city planning, I want to start with you, Laura.
I think Ballpark right is contained, and it will be the people that it affects who will be able to opine whether or not they want to tax themselves. So I'm not too worried about that. In terms of the Downtown Denver Authority, the DDA, it's this unique public finance tool to improve public space, rights of way. It can assist with offsetting the deficit cost of office conversion to residential, which is what everyone's trying to do right now. If you look at all of Denver, downtown Denver, the Union Station area feels most lively, most engaged, least number of empty retail stores. They are using the term central neighborhood district as opposed to central business district, which we have been since the 60s, since urban renewal came on. And it's a term I actually created coming out of COVID because I realized we needed to start thinking about our downtown not as a single-use business office, but it actually needs to be a neighborhood. It needs to be authentic. People need to have a sense of ownership to it, and nobody has that. I'm concerned that the Department of Economic Development and the Finance Department of the cities are leading the charge, and there is nobody at the city who is being the visionary about how does it feel? What is it? How do we vision our future of our downtown? And that is about the emotion and the urban design of the place and not about the finances or the economics of it.
It feels like there's a lot of talk about money, and then
Yes.
changing the name of the 16th Street Mall. Will all that together get people back downtown?
You would hope. I mean, it's due. I mean, we have been kind of spoiled. I mean, downtown's been on autopilot for the last 20 or 30 years. The challenge for downtown is bringing people back to the office, right? And for leaders in the city and others to think about, readapting office buildings so that they're residential. So, I mean, I agree with Laura. DDAs are a great tool. They've done them in Fort Collins and Inglewood, Golden, Brighton, and in Littleton. They're a great way for a downtown area to get a seat at the table, so they're not a supplicant to the general fund, right? They can sort of not necessarily jump the queue, but it gives them a little bit more power when it comes to planning. If I can geek out for a second, DDAs are a different animal than other tax increases in debt. Not just registered voters have an opportunity to vote, but tenants can vote. Commercial tenants can vote. Renters can vote as well. People who are registered to vote elsewhere are eligible to vote. However, there's a process for them to get on the rolls. And it really is incumbent on a campaign that's organized and detailed to make sure that the people they've identified as voting yes are actually going to turn out.
You have to remember that there was the same panic when the Cherry Creek Shopping Center first went in, that it was going to kill downtown. And downtown wasn't all that beautiful back then, 30, 40 years ago. So downtown will come back. The DDA is a really elegant way to help with the financing. A very smart maneuver if it works. Laura's right. You want to have somebody not just looking at the money, but what kind of projects and how do they lead to the vision we want for downtown. Interestingly, that same poll, fewer than 50% of the people said they were really concerned about downtown Denver. Most of the people who were concerned about it were the people who use it, but downtown Denver will come back. It's going to take some smart moves, and I'm worried we're going to see some stupid moves along the way too.
Okay.
I want to shift a little bit. Everyone else has hit downtown, and I think done a nice job of it. The other thing that's going to be on the ballot this year that is not getting discussion yet is likely a collective bargaining initiative for city employees. And I hope that there is a robust conversation, and I think there will be around this table, not only this table, but throughout the city on that initiative. Denver is a very progressive city. Something like this, I think, is attractive in many in many precincts, shall we say, and may well pass. And I don't even know where I necessarily firmly come down on it. It's at least an open question in my mind as to whether this is the right move from a financial point of view for this city, and I don't think we ought to just overlook it and automatically check that box. This needs a robust debate, a robust conversation, and we ought to be a part of it.
Okay, we'll do that some week. You're on the show.
We'll do it.
Excellent. In November, voters across Colorado may also be asked to support their school districts. Sean, this isn't just a DPS issue. There are districts across the state who need an infusion of funds.
Yes, I mean, as we've discussed here today, we are in a presidential cycle, which typically brings out a younger, more progressive voter, somebody more inclined to support education issues. So it's no secret that, Cherry Creek School District, Boulder Valley, they, like clockwork, will go to the voters every 4 years. And I don't think in recent memory, either one of them have lost. So it's not just, it is the generosity of the voters, obviously, there, but it's also wisdom of the timing. Okay, in terms of the big ones, Jeffco is sitting it out. Douglas County is going to be on the ballot with a bond. My back of the envelope assessment, just talking with friends, there could be up to $6 billion of bonded debt on the ballot, and that's just from St. Vrain down to D11 in El Paso County. That doesn't include the mountain communities and the plains. That's a lot of economic development. That's a lot of boilers. That's a lot of chillers. That's a lot of asphalt and concrete. These bonds anymore, especially for some of the metro districts whose enrollments have declined, that's going to be a challenge for some of these bond campaigns to make a case to continue to invest in public education when enrollment is down slightly. The lion's share of a lot of these bonds is going toward infrastructure and not new schools.
Patty.
You have a lot of boilers in that, but you have a lot of people who are boiling mad about their school districts. When you look at some of the entities that suffer from the most infighting and citizens who are suspicious, it's school boards. So we'll see how well these campaigns are run. Denver Public Schools, they're doing a big ask, and given how the school board had behaved previously, it's getting better. But is it better? Is it enough better now for people to really vote for this, or will they say, we want to see a little more proof that you can act like adults?
They only have a short amount of time to prove that.
To be adult, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to build on Patty. I mean, the Denver Public School ask, which is just shy of $1 billion out of Sean's estimate of cumulative $6 billion, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is on the same ballot and asking the same voters who are being faced with the sales tax increase for Denver Health, Johnston sales tax increase for affordable housing. It is all one of a package. Denver voters are very generous, and particularly when it comes to DPS. For myself, I look forward to the day when I vote for this bond issue, but some things have to happen first. One is we need to resolve the whole situation with this superintendent who I regard as an underperformer. If there's $100,000 to renovate and accessorize and spiff up his office, maybe the district can find some other $100,000 bills lying between the couch cushions before they come with this kind of request. More substantively, this district needs to right size. It has backed away from the tough debate about closing some schools and consolidating some schools. And to my thinking, that has to happen before you come with a request of this magnitude.
The way we have set up government finance is it is split between capital and operations, but operations on operating budget, right? So you go in and you build a school, and you have no idea, there's no connection to what you have to invest in it every year or every 10 years to make sure it holds and is able to perform over 100 years. I also think schools have never, like public transit, like residential communities, have never supported themselves financially, and it is not their purpose to function as money makers, let alone become zero sum, right, at the end of their budget year. We have really set them up for failure, or they have set them, we as a government have set ourselves up for failure in the way we have structured our finances.
Mm-hmm.
Except the DPS bond will pass. Their polling, what I've heard, is inverse to the Colorado Polling Institute poll that showed what the leadership in the 20s. The voters here in Denver aren't linking achievement or leadership to giving them more tax dollars. The Denver Public School, I can't remember the last time a DPS bond failed. It will pass again, and it will pass again the next time.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about some of the highs and the lows of this week. I know we've talked a lot about money. On a really hot week, and we're spending a lot of money on air conditioning. But let's talk about the highs and the lows, starting with the negatives so we can end on a high note.
I'm very sad Alton isn't here this week because he could talk about this. The Denver Public Police Department is going to launch a campaign for 1 month to hit up people with expired license plates or bad temporary tags. Great idea, except that as soon as it was announced, the DMV computers went down.
On Tuesday. Yep, they sure did. Just for one day, but still.
Well, enough to discourage a lot of scofflaws.
Yeah.
I'm going where you started, Kyle. The disgrace this week, disgrace is a little strong. It's Mother Nature, and particularly what Mother Nature has in store for us this weekend. We've received the memo. You can back off a little bit now.
Okay.
I am saddened that the greatest generation and the baby boomers are not having some moments of self-reflection. I hope they are. They have accomplished an amazing amount. They have raised amazing children and grandchildren, and I think their value in being advisors and instructors to the rest of us is prime, and I am saddened that we can't move, those generations can't move to that place. Just as a couple of data points, there are 35 senators who are 70 years or older. That's 35%. There are 74 House of Representatives that are 70 years or older, which is 17%. And I think I am asking those folks to really look at that.
And it's better than it was in years past, that age average. I'm still waiting for my state representative, Elizabeth Epps, to concede. As a political operative, it's a personal pet peeve of mine when somebody loses, which is very painful. When you lose a political race, all you want to do is go home and get under the quilt. But you've got to, at some point, strike a positive note. Credit the people who helped you get to where you got. And, again, inject some optimism. I'll be back. I'm going to be back fighting for the values. Tim Hernandez, who lost a much closer race, managed to do that. And I think it was a missed opportunity for Elizabeth Epps.
Okay. Something positive, Patty.
Let's save the city some money. Let's come up with our own name for the mall. Sweet 16th, the Mile High Mile. Send your nominations here, and let's save the money.
You just saved the Downtown Denver Partnership about $100,000. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mile High Mile.
You're welcome.
All right.
Well, in some Facebook dust up, I threw my own suggestion in for that rebranding, which was Addict Alley, but that was a little bit negative, and I think I was told that. So for my say something nice, I'll go back in a different direction since I started with Mother Nature as the say something unfavorable. How about air conditioning? Technology that gives us air conditioning, and to those who got it fixed in this studio, thank you.
It's good today. Yes.
So my pitch for 16th Street Mall is just the 16th Street. And if you look at cities around the world, they just use the street name, and it's pretty simple because nobody goes to malls anymore. My high of the week is it's the 10th anniversary of the Denver Union Station, and they are having a series of events this weekend, some of which are free, some you can pay a lot of money to go have a fancy experience, but It is. I was lucky enough to serve on the Denver Union Station Project Authority Board, and this is a testament to Colorado and Denver and our character and our fortitude that started in the late 1800s, and it represents the best Denver living room I can think of. So congratulations to them.
Close to Kids Denver is a nonprofit that I've supported in the past. They run a boutique. They give away clothing to kids in need, those that have qualified for a free reduced lunch at DPS. They take donations of gently used clothing. Just last week, they were named a beneficiary of CO 1000, which is another nonprofit that selects 2 beneficiaries every year that they are supporting. So it was a big deal for them to get that grant.
Close to kids. Got it. Great. All right, I'm happy for the first summer in 2 years. I have a car that has air conditioning. That's really it. I'm just really, really happy. Everyone stay cool. Take it easy this weekend, okay, with this hot weather upon us. Same goes with the panel here. Thank you all for joining us this week. Thank you for watching or listening on our podcast. I will see you next week here on PBS 12.
PBS 12 believes in the power of original, local programming. Help us bring more shows, like the one you just watched, by donating at pbs12.org/program support today.